Here we are. So today we have Romy here and Christine, myself, and we just finished off the week of nutrition, which was a really cool week where Christine got to dive into her intuitive eating a little bit more loose schedule, more listening to herself, and we get to listen to her experiences. But first, let's address Romy. Romy, why don't you say a little bit about who you are and what you did this week with Christine? And yeah.
All right, so I worked with Christine this past week regarding nutrition, with the pillar of nutrition. And we had a really lively discussion about kind of how we can really approach intuitive and mindful eating. And for a lot of people, it could be, there are many ways to approach it and many perspectives.
But Alzheimer's and how I work with I focus on the geriatric population. And one aspect of the geriatric population that I'm really grown fond of are the centenarians, those that live beyond 100 years old. And so one of the biggest secrets that the centenarians, especially those in Okinawa, Japan, swear by is the term hara hachibu, or eating till 80% full. And so Christine and I kind of discussed what does that mean, or what kind of signals are we looking for, what kind of almost signs that the body actually would show up, or by listening. So we had this kind of discussion about how we can apply hara hachibu, and also not just in terms of, we've worked with kind of, whenever we talk about intuitive and mindful eating, we're always thinking about hunger cues, but not many people think about fullness cues, because there are many cultures out there that would assume that if you're not eating your entire plate, well, that's just a waste, and that could be almost detrimental to whatever culture you've come from. I know from my Asian background, I would sit at the dining table for hours just with a few grains of rice left, but I could never finish it. So we've come to kind of welcome that and to really push that aside and to really think about when we're full. So that was a kind of that discussion that I had with Christine. We've also talked about foods that may even help with, oh dear, this term again, satiety.
Satiation.
Satiation, yes. Feeling satiated.
Yes.
And there are foods that can really help with that. Some of the basics can be having more protein or fat in the portion, and even fiber. And so we kind of also touched base a bit on easier fiber sources that could help with satiation as well as bowel movements. So awesome. I'll leave it to Christine now to kind of share how she felt with the discussion, how she felt with the week.
So we'll go with the recap first, then we'll go there.
Okay.
Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. So thank you, Romy. Here it is. Okie dokie. I found another lovely picture. I thought I liked this picture because it has your little book, your little self-discovery book. And then I found lovely little vegetables that went all around it. I liked it. And this knife was kind of weird. It's like all rusty, but anyways, hopefully your knives aren't rusty. Moving on. So week 4, this is the nutrition week, and here's Christine's health journey. And what we worked on this week, as Romy has already outlined, is further into intuitive eating and hunger triggers. And we're still creating more of that intention towards purpose and what Christine wants, kind of discovering, and I mean, I know that from her sharing with me that she'll be able to speak towards sort of that nutrient density, because it's definitely like, I don't know if you heard it there, Christine, when Romy was talking, but the bridge between what he was saying and what our conversation was earlier today. And then monitoring and assuring that the health metrics are moving in the direction in line with Christine's goals. So that's what we're going to be outlining here. So for that first one, what we were doing was we were eating until 80% full and practicing self-compassion and listening to the body, and spending more time breathing, checking out with the self, and being more mindful in general, and asking questions and redefining what things look like for Christine. Goal number 2, it's much the same like the week before. We have our reflection video and our entry into the self-discovery journal, our discussions like this, and then she had the opportunity of asking for support from myself and Romy throughout the week when she needed it. And we are tracking her biometrics, which we're going to go over next. And we are still encouraging the social activities that involve community and linking to already existing routines. So the first thing, sleep. Yeah, one of these days, we had about 2.5 hours of sleep, and Christine is going to give us the lowdown of that possibly, and how that might have impacted her hunger on that lovely Sunday. And so that from the whole week, what that looks like is a reduction of 36 minutes per day on average compared to last week.
That's not bad.
And no, it isn't that bad, right? I thought that you'd look at this and you'd be like, oh, that's not actually that bad, because this is a pretty not detrimental, sorry, that's a pretty extreme word. It's a pretty big decrease in sleep, you know? But one thing I want to just highlight is the consistency of the amount of sleep, because I know that Romy, you're going to look at that and you're going to be like, that's pretty good, right? Just like the consistency of like when she would go to sleep, or just how much sleep. Sometimes that is super important for sleep quality. And the next thing that I think is really cool is that you had another increase in steps. So this is like what, the 3rd week in a row, or actually I think you've had an increase every single week in steps. So, you know, that trajectory is awesome. However, the thing that we want to also note is that when your recovery is decreased and your activity is increased, we have to also be able to be mindful of balance. So I'm not going to make anything right or wrong about that. It's just something to note so that we can adjust and just roll with this type of information, you know? And another successful week of implementing our stuff for the week. So this week was a little bit more loose. It didn't have like the other weeks where you had like a daily task or something like this. It was more about the mindfulness. So, you know, what you're going to be adding next is really going to be contributing to the conversation for yourself, Christine. And Romy is going to be here to receive all of your insights, all of the things and little nuggets of knowledge that you discovered through the week. And you get to pick his brain, share with everybody listening, and also reflect for yourself. So in the future, you can look back on this moment as well. So I'll give you the floor now. So let us know how the week went for you.
I think my brain is tired because with focusing the way we were on the harahachibu and like listening for hunger cues, listening for full cues. Like, I feel like my brain was in overdrive because it was just constantly thinking, am I full? Am I hungry? Am I sure I'm hungry? But then I was also trying to like really focus on disconnecting. So not being distracted when I'm eating like being in a conversation or not like taking time and breathing. But also just a quick note on the recap to anyone who is watching this. So my normal bedtime is around 12. That's just habit. So when we left for Nanaimo, the only reservation we could get was the first ferry in the morning at 5:15 in the morning. And so because I can't sleep till 12, because that's just habit. And then also when I'm excited to go on vacation, I also can't sleep. So I ended up like having 2.5 hours to sleep that night because then we had to be up by like 3:30 or 3 o'clock to get ready and get ourselves to the ferry terminal, which is why there was this huge, I'm actually happy to see that the night after there was a big increase in sleep compared to a regular night's sleep, which means I was taking care of the sleep debt that I accrued from the previous night. The increase though in steps, I'm quite surprised. Like I knew I had an increase in steps over those 2 days as well, but really that was just a lot of exploring. Like there was no hard workouts going on that weekend. And if anything, because we had got to the island so early in the morning, there was nothing open. So Mike decided to take me to some trail, and we just did a trail. Like we walked around a trail together, and I got like a really nice head start on my step count for that day. But yeah, nothing too extreme. So if anything, I still considered those 2 days like rest days because I wasn't really pushing as hard. But yeah, going back to nutrition, during the week, yes, it makes a huge difference to have nutrient dense food. And I was really having to go back and forth by like if I did eat to the point I was full, I'm like, oh damn, I ate too much. I didn't do it right. Because I was just like, it's totally not intentional. I was just like, oh, but the food was so so nutrient dense and it was so healthy, and I ate it and I didn't think I'd feel so full, and now I screwed it up. And then on the weekend, I was mentioning this to Cameron this morning, like, yeah, it was my cheat weekend, but at the same time, like nothing of it was nutrient dense whatsoever. So I guess that would probably explain why I was feeling so hungry every 2 hours. Then I'm like, but am I really hungry? Like I didn't really, like I thought I ate a lot of crap, but that crap didn't satiate me in a way where I would like be content for a while. And so I got hungry again. And so yeah. So I don't know. I'm more mentally exhausted from having to think about eating than what I'm used to. And the crazy thing was, I was like, oh, but I wouldn't mind having articles and things sent to me, little nuggets to like reflect on. Because this week I was really struggling to think of content because I'm just like, what am I going to talk about today? I'm just doing the same thing I'm doing every single day. And really trying so hard to figure it out. Like, I feel like this is something that you figure out over time. Like, I don't think it's something I'm going to figure out in 1 week. So yeah, that's how my week went.
And it makes almost total sense to me. I think for me, I left it to you to kind of almost as if you were going to make this huge discovery as you power through on, even the basics. It's kind of like almost, we always think of the foundations as what it should be, but we're always looking for, that silver bullet or something along those lines. But the moment you've mentioned how being brain dead as you are, trying to listen to your cues, your hunger cues and your fullness cues, kind of brings me back to thinking about how other forms of mindfulness can also be as draining. Like, for example, some people might even say meditation. And that meditating for 5 minutes is hard for a lot of us. But if, let's say, we replace mindful eating with meditation, for example, that would be quite difficult or quite a challenge to be doing that for like, a whole day, 8 hours on end, that sort of thing. And then we would start getting to this point of, am I doing this right? what else is going on in my mind right now? Is this what's supposed to happen? Like, is there a manual for this? That sort of thing. And so I do deeply understand that it was quite a challenge to kind of figure out what was it to be to expect, or what kind of pearls or nuggets, as you mentioned, to come up from this. But seems like you've taken a lot of deep thinking when it regards to the Hunger Games.
So I think that there's going to be something said too about the desire to know more, the desire to add more, the desire to like do it perfect, do it right, do it all these things. Like, if I can't come up with this, and then we make it mean something, you know, all these things that sometimes the experience of not being okay with there not being extra, with there not being something like directly tangible that you can get from reading an article, for example. There's a very tangible end result, right? You finish the article, end point, right? You get a certain type of knowledge, end point. You can now speak about that knowledge, right? When it's all loose, self-discovery, it can be very overwhelming. And like Romy said, you know, it can be like you're doing meditation for 24 hours because you're like, well, what, my brain, can I get out of my brain now, please? Can I please go out of here and go into something else? Especially when you're on vacation, right? You have more of yourself. You can't distract yourself from work or with work. You've got to be with your brain. That's can be a very challenging thing sometimes. I know it's challenging in here sometimes, you know? And that's exactly sometimes what we need, is to get that distinction between feeling like we need to do more and just being okay with whatever is, right? And also what we had spoken about, and Romy, just so that I'll add, the conversation that I had with Christine prior, it was about stretch receptors and stretch receptors in the stomach and density receptors, I think. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you're having foods that are more high calorie and more refined, right, you're going to be satiating those density receptors for those specific nutrients, but it's not going to have the micronutrients, right? You might be missing some of the minerals, some of the vitamins, some of the other stuff, but also the bulk and how quick it digests. It's going to be so much quicker. And so thus, whether your blood sugar spikes, blood sugar dips, you get hungry again, feel tired, you know, then you look for food, you feel bored, you feel less stimulated. We have a ton of different reasons why we look to food. So the question I have for you, Christine, is what would you say from this whole week of you being hyper-focused about your awareness of food, what did you discover is your biggest trigger for food if you were to name an emotion?
Relaxation?
Okay.
Relaxed?
Sure. So when you are in a relaxed state, you crave food.
Sure.
Okay. Cool. I mean, for me, if I get a reward when I was a kid, when I got a reward, my mom would treat me to food. So it's ingrained into me that when I am going through adversity, food comes after. Now, I'm not saying that that's what is there for you. I don't know what is, but that is one of the big points of discovering inside and another for me is boredom. I eat when I'm bored.
Well, I guess like every time I've gone on vacation, for me, it's just been don't hold back, because I'm here, I'm on vacation, I want to enjoy everything that the place has to offer. So in Nanaimo, they have a Nanaimo bar trail. So what did I do? Deep fried Nanaimo bar, a regular Nanaimo bar, the Nanaimo bar milkshake, the Nanaimo bar cheesecake. Like not all at once, like
That's
spread out
fine.
over the weekend, shared, not my own. Like, got to taste a little bit of everything. But like, you know, so it's like, I'm, you know, when in Greek, when in Rome, do what the Romans do, right?
Yeah.
Like, so
Yeah.
that kind of mentality.
Sure.
Would that happen every weekend? No.
course not. Yeah.
But it was like, this was an opportunity to enjoy. And so I did.
Yeah. And
Too
so
much.
like there's nothing wrong with that at
Yeah.
all. Like,
Yeah.
so one thing that's admirable about that is that when you go into an experience, that you want to experience it as it were meant to be experienced, right?
Mhm.
And you also create little rules for yourself such that you are sharing, so that you are also practicing that self-compassion. So that's awesome. So now you
Yeah.
did that intuitively.
Mhm.
So the up level to that is inside of any other observations that you can see within yourself that you can then implement further. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. So is there anything else that you can, and Romy, feel free to hop in if you see something.
I like to build off on that actually. Like that's
Please.
also intuitively, that's what you call savoring. So savoring the moment is
Mhm.
also part of the mindful eating.
Mhm.
So definitely nothing wrong with that. And everyone's when you're on vacation, of course.
Yeah, I don't go on vacation every weekend, so
No.
I think we'll be okay. If we did go on vacation every weekend, that's a serious problem that we should address, but it's not.
Yeah. No. But then it's not a
Um,
vacation, really.
No. Well, if I go somewhere different every weekend.
I don't know. Maybe it's just maybe it's just another business trip. I don't know. It's like when people say it like a dessert. Like if they have a dessert every day, it's not a dessert, really.
Yeah, no. I definitely, those are for the weekends for sure. That is now instilled in habits.
Mm-hmm.
Desserts are on weekends only. Same with
Mm-hmm.
the occasional cider. But this week also, because there wasn't like, I don't know, I'm the type that likes to like figure things out on my own quite a bit, which is probably why you don't see a lot of questions from me, unless it's like a really burning question that I just can't figure out. Then I'll throw it in there, and that's something that's from all the weeks. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's why you're like, think of 5 questions. I'm just like, oh my god,
Yep.
I don't know. Like, I really had to think about it, not just with you, but with the other nutritionists. I was like, what am I going to ask? And it's not to say I know everything. It's just at that moment, it's not like a burning question that I really need answered right away. But at the same time, it also made me think like, this is foreshadowing what the rest of my life could look like. Because I'm trying to figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I know the support is there, but I was just like, but
Mm-hmm.
this is if I don't have the support,
Mm-hmm.
I could potentially really screw this up.
Uh-oh. Where did Romy
Oh
go?
no!
Come back, Romy.
He left. Oh, he'll
Maybe
be
his
back soon.
computer died. But
No.
yeah, so like that. Sorry, I said his computer died, not him died.
Oh, I know.
Okay, cool. But like that. So the reason why, you know, these types of things are really important is like you can recognize that one of your winning formulas is that you can do it alone. You know, like you can figure it out. You are talented, you are skilled, you have passion, drive, all these things, right? And you've made it with that. And asking questions is paramount inside of you always having support in every context, right? Because it doesn't, like, the question that I would pose to you is, what does asking for help mean to you? Like, a lot of times when people ask for help, they make it mean something. Like, when asking for help means that I am, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with like actually like really, I guess it goes back to vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're asking a question, you're showing your vulnerability of like not knowing or understanding. And if at the same time, it's like, yes, obviously I'm asking a question because I don't know and I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
But I think my entire life, I've grown up always having to figure things out on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what has got me to where I am.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I have to let that go, because there are people that want to help me, especially through this transformation journey. Like and I've got like this perfect opportunity to have all these professionals at my whim if I want them to be. But at the same time, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I think I gotta find those like burning questions where I'm just like, okay, yeah, because at the same time, I don't want to disturb anybody or inconvenience anybody by asking questions, right?
May I pause you for a sec?
Yeah, go for it.
You said something right there. Have to.
Oh no.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
It's the should and the have to again, right?
Oh no.
Yeah, you're shoulding on yourself. It's no, but really, like, you're the one who creates the standard of where you should be and where you are, right? And the distance between those 2 points is what drives whatever emotion inside you. So if you have an opinion of how you should be, and here's where you are, right? The gap between could be the question. However, it's easier sometimes to just figure it out on our own, right? However, like, I want you to consider that discomfort of not knowing the answer, or sorry, not knowing the question to ask, is exactly what will bring you to the next level, is to discover in there, like directly in there. Because where else in your life have you, in your whole past, had the experience that you've needed to figure it out on your own? And it's way easier to just choose to do it on your own than to ask for help out of any type of situation, you know? I'm sure you can name a few.
Like figuring out my career path.
Yeah, exactly. And these are the things. It's like, what's that like for you to be always figuring things out on your own?
It's what makes me the independent person I am today, right? Like, I like to think of myself as a very strong-willed, independent person. But then at the same time, I feel like I'm starting to sound as though I'm like so stubborn. But that's a family thing.
Right. So then we have the default statement that justifies the situation, right?
Yeah.
It's a family thing. Right. But so being independent is awesome. And why can't independent people ask for help as well? Right. It's like there's like, you have to have both. You have to have one or the other. Right. Can you see how, like, you were insinuating that?
Oh, again.
So all there is to notice, right? Like, that it's about the discovery. So, like, Romy, I'd really love for you to, like, you know, jump in here and let us know what you're hearing here, because inside of the context of nutrition, I'm sure that you see this, right?
Definitely when it comes to, I guess, the just like the exercise that we had where you have to come up with 5 questions. Some people may not be able to come up with 5 questions. And some people kind of make up the 5 questions, but is it really burning, or is it really pertaining to you? So the idea here is who or what you were asking for. Is it for your expectations or someone else's expectations? So,
oh yeah, no, those were totally my questions. Those were questions I really, really thought of.
Okay, good.
That would take me to that next level of understanding. Because honestly, like, I know very much the basics of this is good, this is bad, this is not so great. Like, you know, it's gotten me this far, but not to the point of, you know, and this is one of my goals that I've listed today, is having my nutrition be effortless. And when I think of this week where my brain now hurts because I was thinking so much, like, what do I do to make my nutrition more effortless? Like, because right now it feels like a lot of effort, and that goes back to, well, when things are too hard or require so much effort. And I think this is not just me, but people in general with nutrition, when they find that their nutrition is so hard to figure out, they think of the shortcuts, or what's the easiest way to do it. Let's get fast food. Let's get meal plans put together. Let's get, meal prepping companies do the work for us, because we don't want to think about it. And I don't want to get to that point. Like, I want to be able to still be independent and have my nutrition be effortless. But yeah.
Can you say something about, like, I don't want to get to that point? So what do you make it mean when you are to take a shortcut? Like, what do you make it mean inside if you were to mindfully choose to do that?
Like, mindfully, like, let's say hire a meal prep company.
Yep.
That's just expensive.
Sure. But like, what, so
I don't want to, I could afford it if I wanted to. I just don't want it to get to that point where.
Right. What does that mean? Like, can you unpack that statement?
Like, where I just give up on thinking of focusing on my nutrition and just have someone do the work for me.
Right. So what hiring a meal prep company means to you is that you've given up on doing it yourself, and you're getting someone to do it for you.
Yeah, I'm just going to rely on someone else to figure it out for me, so I don't have to think about it. Which then it truly does make my nutrition effortless.
It does, doesn't it? However,
yes.
Like, something I want to point out is who said that hiring a meal prep company needed to be every single meal?
Oh yeah, no, definitely. No, it wouldn't have to be every meal.
Right. So I'm just pointing out that perhaps you take in the concept and you think about it in all or nothing terms in a quick, short thought, because you made the comment about, I hope it like doesn't come to that point, right? Because to me, when you talk about a meal prep company, it could be stated in an empowering way. It's like, I love making my breakfasts and my lunches, but I could have a meal prep company do my dinners so that I was able to have them earlier or something like this. Like, but when you spoke, it was almost like you'd have to, you'd have to submit to 100% to the meal prepping gods or something.
No, but it's like, I do want to take pride in still shopping for myself and discovering new recipes and continuing to let Mike cook dinners for me. And like, still having that freedom, because and it's better on the pocket. And
Definitely. It sounds like there's this element that we were kind of touching base on, which was, again, independence. But when we think of meal prepping, would you think meal prepping would kind of move you away from that independence?
Oh, meal prepping for myself? No. Like, I've meal prepped for myself in the past, and it's really good.
And what about the prepped meals and such? Like, if you were to order the prepped meals, or whatever you call it.
Oh, like and then for me, like, I want to know what's in there. Like, seeing it myself, picking it myself, just it's very different than me going to get fast food and kind of making a healthier choice from their menu, right? Like, there's a loss of control there of knowing like what I'm having is really the nutrient dense or calorically satisfying meal. So like I'm gonna shit on myself right now, but I should learn how to do this if I want it to be more sustainable and long-term. Because relying on, let's say, a company or a fast food place is not good on your pocket, but also um, I'll never learn at the end of the day, because then I'm relying on someone or something else to do it for me. And when those things disappear, then what? Like, so yeah, no, it's all about, at the end of the day, making it more effortless. So having to learn to do it as well.
I think that like the big thing that I want to acknowledge you for, but then also Mike, is being able to like be adaptable in that, because sort of what Romy and I are touching upon, we both poked the bear, if you will, around this notion of independence, like needing to know, have control, and be independent, right? So it's a gift and a curse, because it can get us into trouble where we become so stubborn that we are unwilling to give up that control. Now, Romy and I are both not attached to this idea of you doing a meal prep company, which might come off in just like a little more, like neither Romy or I want you to do that. I think that Romy was doing a very similar thing to me, where I was just kind of trying to investigate, like, what's happening here, right? And like really that's ultimately what it is, because you creating that sustainability of allowing for yourself to let go of control and have Mike, for example, cook some of the meals, is still you being independent and asking for
Relying.
help. Yes, but it's on your terms.
Yeah.
So the key is it's on your terms. That's right.
Exactly.
Because a relationship really is just two individuals creating us, right? And us is a sort of other level of acting. Does that like make sense? I hope that makes sense.
Acting?
But acting like in the world, like, so individual acts alone, but then us acting together, right? It's almost like the two worlds now create one, right? So then you have three people. You have you have Mike, and then you have us, kind of thing.
I bought the ingredients. He's cooking it.
Exactly. But that's what teamwork is, right? And so now more people have a hand in the end output, right? Which I want to just outline that independence doesn't necessarily mean or need to be just you doing everything. But it's you having a hand in supporting us or supporting whomever, right? And it's the same thing as you coming to us with questions. I don't want you to see it as like you coming to questions for us to then like give to you. It's like we're figuring this out together. So it's you contributing to us, like you're contributing to the conversation, such that we are able to be there for you how it would work for you, right? So technically it's even more independent for you to show up with questions, because then it actually engages the conversation in a manner that works for you. See how it's kind of meta, where it actually creates more of what you would need by asking?
I actually like to do a little exercise, if that's all right with you both.
Yeah.
So I'd like to put it in a nutrition sense, but let's do it in a different sense first, and maybe we could do part 2 as nutritional. But no one is ever going to be alone. So one thing that I like to kind of get someone to think about, especially when it comes to, appreciation, and that even though we depend on others, they depend on us. There's this interconnectedness and interreliance. But let's say, for example, you have a computer that you need to, do your accounting and all that. What steps have the computer need to go through in order to get to you? That will then be you utilizing the computer to then be able to help others. Do you get what I'm trying to ask in this kind of sense?
Can you say it again?
So kind of like, what's needed to build a computer and to get it to where you are, where it is in front of you, whether you're using a computer right now, or for me now a phone. But list the steps and how we had to appreciate every single step that it took to get to where you are at in order for you to utilize the computer and for you to make a difference.
So to do accounting.
Exactly.
Saying that to an accountant is perfect. All right, accountant, game on. Talk to us about the computer.
Well, I can't even have a computer without the people who build the computer.
One, okay. And how do the people who build the computer, how can they build it?
Through the education they get and knowledge to build it.
Knowledge to build it, yeah. What else?
So then there are instructors at BCIT who teach them how to build a computer. So, but it's like I'm working backwards here.
Yeah, exactly.
But it needs me to power the computer.
Exactly. But what are the things that you need to build a computer?
To build it, resources, materials.
How do you get the resources?
Imported.
Or
locally sourced.
Yes.
I don't know where metal comes from for these computers.
You could just say, from like a cave or something, but
it's mined. It's mined.
It's been mined, yes. And how do you get it from the mine?
You dig deep.
So you need to get people to dig these materials out.
Yeah.
And how do these materials then get to the plant, the whatever computer plant?
Transportation.
So you see how everything has a step, but it also has a step of relying on something or someone.
So I should continue relying on my... No, no, but like, yeah, so in anything that I do, there is some form of relying on something or someone, that not everything is independent because I need stuff to be independent.
So it's this whole notion of that we all, depend on each other in one way or another. And so I think the thinking here is, and it's a teamwork type of thing. Like no one's going to take credit for, who built, the computer or who actually delivered a computer to your door or something. Unless if you're, one of those top computer guys or something. But I think what I'm trying to get at here is it's just about embracing how, we've been brought here in this point, and that there's no shame in doing it.
Mm-hmm.
That's really an important, I love that little exercise, because it gives the appreciation of all of the steps that had to have happened before it. And it also kind of makes you question, like, what is independence really? Because if it really were to be you alone independently acting 100%, zero, well, I guess strip naked, go into a cave and start from nothing, because you're going to have to make all of those items, right? Because it's not going to, so what really is independence, right?
And an episode of Alone, that's independence.
Yeah. So you can see, like, why is it that we hold in such high regard this notion of independence? And what is even independence?
That's true, though. Like, to grow up and be independent, like, I think it's just something we're raised with, that concept of, not relying on anybody, or I guess your parents are like, don't rely on us anymore. We want you to be independent, move out, have a career, have like, those are the things, the building blocks that make my child independent.
Sure.
Right.
But did they really? Right? Like, have you ever stopped to question, like why do we value those things in the first place? Like in the West, we have an individualistic culture where we hold that in high regard. Now in Asia, it's a collectivistic culture where everyone in the family is acting inside of the home in order to collectively gain, right? Like
Mhm.
you going to university is a benefit to the family, right? Everything is kind of in relation to the group, not individual. But in the West, we hold at high regard this notion of individuality. So,
Wow, I'm really screwed up then, because I'm Asian and Western. No
I mean,
wonder.
so screwed up, I would challenge, but it's the thing I want you to sit with is, why do you value that? Like,
Mhm.
we all have to self-check sometimes and ask why we value things, right? What are we really seeking? Like, are we really seeking independence? And I mean, just for someone that I was speaking to recently, like they were doing it to prove themselves, right? They were
Mhm.
doing it because they were shamed when they were young, and they wanted to prove that they could do it.
Well, and I think I see independence more so from a financial independence, though,
Sure.
too,
Mhm.
because I was raised in a family with a single mom who
Mhm.
was constantly trying to prove her financial independence and not having to rely on other people. And growing up and seeing that, I'm like, oh my gosh, well, I don't want to be like I want to be able to not have to rely on anybody either. So the whole notion of being financially independent was huge for me.
Mhm.
And I think that also, like, I don't know why this is going to come up weird, but like even during my single days,
Mhm.
right? And just being able to be like, oh yeah, I'm single and I'm independent. Like, what a catch am I, right? But that's supposed to be like desirable qualities to a guy, because they're like, oh good, like my girl doesn't have to rely on me and I don't have to like
Mhm.
take care of her all the time. So I'm just kind of like, well, yeah, I can hold my own. I don't need you. But
Interesting.
so like these are all like just, I guess, instances in life where being independent is part of who I am, how I was growing up, how
Mhm.
like I see myself. And I guess most so maybe just because when I see let's see, couples who you have a stay-at-home mom and she then, has children, and then there's a divorce, and like the mom didn't have a career and didn't make money and completely relied on the husband. And I'm like, oh my gosh, well, if that ever happened to me, like I wouldn't want to be in that position where I can't financially be independent and struggle.
Mhm.
And I think I see that in some of my friends who had divorces and they couldn't
Mhm.
do it anymore.
Mhm.
So there's always that piece of me that always wants to feel independent
Sure.
and know that no matter what happens or whatever crumbles around me,
Mm.
I'll still be able to do it because I've learned to be independent. Yeah. So that's our nutrition update.
Well, I mean, it all interrelates, because this all came from the idea of meal prepping, right?
Yeah.
We might have gone to the mines, and out of the mines and into the computer factory, and out of the computer factory into, the land of your family, back into the land of sandwiches. So now here we are, back to sandwiches.
Sandwiches.
So
Well, I
let's
am having wraps this week.
okay, so we're into wraps now. All right.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, nice. But it's all related, honestly. It's all related. This feeling of needing to be independent in your nutrition is the same thing that runs you. And
Mm-hmm.
all I want you to sit in is like I want you to question. I seriously want you to question, not to invalidate the way of being, but seriously to just self-check why you hold independence in such high regard. There's nothing wrong with it. Please
Mm-hmm.
continue to do it. But
Yeah.
really just be inside of the discovery of asking yourself why. Because if we just accept that it's just the way it is, and like that's the way it's always been, and I know myself as that, and I have so much evidence that points towards that being true, and when I was single I was also independent, because then I don't need to be somebody who he's like, oh, my girl's got it, or sorry, that's how they can be, right? Like you have all of this story that kind of like supports the Christine that's independent, that I want you to really just sit in the question of like why you hold independence in such high regard, and you won't be able to answer the question today.
Well, I was actually, as you were talking, it
Mhm.
actually kind of connects to this whole thing of if I'm independent, or this whole concept of independence. Maybe I should not use that word anymore, but it lends itself to taking ownership of
Mhm.
the habits I want, the goals that I want, taking ownership of what I need to do to, you know, achieve those actionable items to hit my goals.
Right. Because I think that when independence is used, it can sometimes be truly it's interpreted by us, right? So when you're speaking to us, we're interpreting you, and then we're understanding what you're trying to say. It can sometimes sound like you're trying to go at it alone. Now, that's why I'm trying to create the distinction between independence and what we're really talking about that you want, because we're not talking about independence for your nutrition. That might be how you might be relating to it, but I mean, I'm not going to give it to you because I don't know what exactly it would be for you in your words. But what Romy was speaking about the computer, like having all of these things, all these steps in order to have the computer be in front of you, right? For you to have your nutrition, you know, Mike supporting you by creating the dish, you doing the grocery shopping, all of these steps are all interrelated towards the outcome of you having and taking ownership, I think is a beautiful way of putting it, right? So it's discovering what that is, because it doesn't mean you have to do it alone. It just means that, like, how is it that you can literally build a computer, quote unquote, metaphorically, you know, such that you can do your accounting. And that's essentially what your nutrition is. And we don't have that process yet fully for your nutrition, but I like to think about it like a scaffolding, right? I spoke about that word before today to you, but like it's an environment and a life that supports a way of living that makes it highly probable that you just by definition thrive, period, because everything around you points towards that which is working. And a good example of this is you knowing what to buy and ingredients that are easily accessible at the grocery store that work for your nutrition, you buying them with ease, knowing which aisle, you knowing how to prepare them and chop them and whatever, having a partner that will actually take part in that with you and cook it based on your schedule, having diversity so that you don't get bored, right? We're listing all of these things that you've discovered that kind of derail you. But if you can get that, like, it doesn't mean that you have to do it alone. But when you have a scaffolding around you that promotes all of these things happening all at the same time, your life just works, and you create that ease and that simplicity of nutrition that you're out to find. That's the end of my monologue. I feel like I do one long monologue per like one of these. I'm done now.
If I had two hands right now, I'd be clapping.
Thank you.
My phone right now.
Yay. So did you hear something in that, Christine?
Yeah, no, it's
Great.
Definitely a lot of that is actually very true today. Definitely. I just think I was just thinking too much this week.
Sure. Well, it's
but it's learning.
Like,
it's learning.
It is, but I mean, it's like if I told you to go build yourself a website on like your favorite hobby, you know, like which platform, you know, what information, you know, like there are so many different avenues that you could go. What code, what pictures, whatever, right? If I give you a question that's open-ended, there's a billion different ways that you can go on a topic. It's overwhelming. It's right, and especially when you want to get it right. That's the society we live in, though. We have information accessible to us anytime, right? And through that notion of overwhelm, we can get like decision fatigue, right? It's a very real thing, especially when you have a very mental job. So I just want you to know that that's not what like the end result is, that you're just thinking about food all the time, right? Inside of the discovery process, it can actually be way harder to sit in open-ended questions, right? But you can also understand that through sitting in open-ended questions and having uncertainty, that for something about uncertainty or a lack of control, if you will, is unfavorable. That's all.
I'm letting it sink in. Just like,
And I'm
like
letting it
awkward
sink.
silence. Okay.
It can be awkward silence.
I feel like
if you
I'm
want
in
it to be.
awkward silence, but I'm just like, yes.
Silence is good.
I just let silence happen. It's whatever we make it mean, right?
Okay.
That's actually another like really important thing, is that we attach meaning to like literally everything. If we want to let silence be awkward, it can be, or it can be peaceful. We get to choose. So what direction do we want to go now, guys? We're going to be coming up to our the ending of our conversation here, and this is where we get to discuss what you liked, what you found challenging, and what you want to bring forward into the next weeks. And that doesn't mean add more. It just means like something that you want to acknowledge that bringing forward would be something that would add to your journey.
I feel like I'm still trying to figure it all out. Like this whole 80% full concept, and like, oh, the whole like 3 hours before bedtime, totally love keeping that. But I was like, yes, I can totally do that. Well, let's see, what time is it now? Well, maybe not so much today, but normally I can. But yeah, no, I still think like there's nights where I feel like I got it, and then there's times where I'm just like, oh, I went too far. So, and I think it's just it's a constant daily thing to practice, where I get to a point where, like I said, I don't want to second guess things. I want to figure it out over time, and I feel like that's not something you can figure out in a week.
Nope. Letting go of figuring it out is probably your quickest way, by the way, to getting there.
Mm-hmm.
Like to be attached to to be attached to there being one outcome that you'll find. It is and this is something that I don't know how, maybe Romy, you have another way of saying this, but like and two, for me, this has been something that I've had to personally had to get over. So yeah, I'm gonna let you speak to it, because I think that, yeah, go.
I think how I perceive it, or how I'm observing through this, is that, as Ken mentioned, it's never going to be, one outcome, but how to get to an outcome that is desirable. This is where you have to embrace the different paths that come up. So kind of like, I'm just thinking another accounting kind of thing. Maybe it makes it easier if it's accounting related.
Oh, I can't really hear you, Romy.
I don't know, is it my phone now?
That's okay. I think you might have been covering the microphone or something. It's okay.
I'm just thinking of a kind of like an accounting type thing, where there's so many everybody one distinct must.
Can't hear.
Can't hear?
There, that was way better. Whatever that was, do that again.
I have no idea what's going on. All my electronics are. Maybe that's the reason why I brought up this, computer plant. I need to get one.
Yeah, it really is. An unconscious, like.
Because first off, it was my Surface that just restarted on me for no entire reason. Now I'm on my phone. But there's many kind of, I guess it's this notion of control. There's so many different uncertainties, that there's so many different elements of uncertainties, that rather than thinking about, just it has to be this path, like I have to get 99.8% of my CPA exam to get onto this next kind of route, and it has to be like this no matter what. And that in order to do that, I must have 4 hours a day of studying for a span of 6 months. Is it ever going to be that strict or that kind of defined? I'm just trying to, I have a really hard time trying to say something that's kind of like this.
I think I'll add to it.
Yeah.
Unless Christine, you want to add to it before I say something.
Well, yeah, no, I think it's just going back to, like, it's not always going to be precise.
No.
But I think it's being put in all these different scenarios where I learn and I understand, what will get me to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, like, within a week, I'm not going to figure it out.
No, and you won't actually. Like so what we're trying to say is, like, the notion of figuring it out is probably the thing holding you back.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so that's why I'm thinking too much. I'm overthinking it.
Yes, correct. So like the notion that there's one answer, or even if there's 3 answers, actually,
Mm-hmm.
like, to give up the fact that there's an answer out there,
Yeah.
that will, because if you like zoom out for a second, right, isn't that just a more mindful way of doing a program that's strict, right? Like, life isn't like that. Life is going to throw you curveballs all the time, and your ability to pivot is your winning, like, outcome, really, like, at the end of it all. And it's so, like, your ability to deal with uncertainty, your ability to, like, have the power to do whatever you need to do is what will get you wherever you want to go. And it sounds so fluffy because it doesn't have a very cut and dry, here's the end product, right? Period.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is life isn't like that. Sorry, it won't be. It's like you go to the supermarket and there's no cheese, and you're like, well, I wanted a grilled cheese, right? Now it threw off my whole thing, so I might as well just have cookies, right? But that's the way the human brain works, right? It's like, well, now my plans are ruined, so I'm going to derail everything. Screw it. No. It's being able to be with uncertainty that all gives you power. Every single instance in your life, period. In work, family, relationships, friends, food, nutrition, physical fitness, anything, another second wave, anything. Your ability to be with uncertainty is the answer, which is, surprise, the answer is 0 answer.
Well, yeah, that was the aha of this week. Was this is just foreshadowing what life will be long term.
Yes.
The whole, all right, I'm left with this predicament of figuring this out, or knowing or not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, all right then.
That's right. So consider that it's all about how you relate to not knowing. Because when you go through this week where you're sitting with not knowing, it occurs to you as overwhelming. Like, your brain hurts afterwards, right? But what if you could sit with not knowing and just, like, not think about it? Or, said another way, you can choose when you want to think about it, that it doesn't plague you. Like, it was like, when I don't know the answer, I even made a quote about this because I thought that it would have some significance at one point. I'll have to find it at some in a moment when I am not talking, because I'm not going to multitask. I want to be able to be intentional. But Give me a moment. I just lost everything. I derailed myself anyway. Anyway. Nope, it's gone. Yeah, but the key is being with uncertainty is the answer, because life's uncertain. Now, the way that we relate to not knowing is what gives us power or makes it overwhelming. Now I've got my trajectory again. The way we relate to it is up to us. If you have the experience of overwhelm, you can notice that you're overwhelmed, and then you can be like, "Badoop, all right, I'm gonna like step away from that sort of overwhelmed state now, and I'm gonna go and just do it." But a lot of people don't even know that they're experiencing overwhelm. They just let life happen to them, right? But given the task of having to come up with these answers, quote unquote, or sorry, come up with these questions, we feel the need to put the pressure on ourselves to come up with it in that moment, and then we experience it as pressure, right? But no one said that we needed to come up with it now if it's not there. We put the pressure on ourselves. So I want you to consider that the overwhelmed brain, tired feeling is just purely related, due to being related to not knowing as needing to know. It's a really hard concept to say. Does that make sense? I'm gonna try again. It's how we relate to uncertainty. If we sit in uncertainty and we don't just let it happen, we're going to spend a long time thinking about uncertainty, and that is overwhelming. So could you be okay with just letting things be?
Yeah.
Cool. So that's what I want you to practice, because that's what's going to give you the insight in the next level. Because you've stated it a few times, and I'm going to find the quote, but it's like the need to know, like the need, I need to know that thing, that feeling, that I need to know type of thing in uncertainty is really overwhelming. Imagine you're like an animal in the wild or something. You don't know where your food is. If you should go north, south, east, west, right? Is there going to be food that way? Was it a good decision? Was it a bad decision? Should I have gone a different way? You know, oh, well, now I'm starving. Now I'm dwelling on the fact that I went north for 3 days, right? Now there's no water over here. Maybe I should have gone south, right? We live in a world where we don't have to deal with that type of uncertainty. Our level of uncertainty is a little different, but our programming is all the same, unfortunately. So any additions, Romy, to all that?
Nope, I think that was clear. It's something that I have to kind of, if I could say that in 2 lines, that's something I'll have to figure out. That will be my homework.
Ah, nice. I love it. I mean, it's a journey. That's why the word journey is used, because no one can master it. It is a continuous discovery and getting to new levels of, right? And that's why it's not a destination, right? So I think that that's beautifully put. If like Romy, you know, someone with the educational background you have, you know, is sitting with that, like it just is a testament to like how, you know, important it really can be sometimes to look inside to deal with uncertainty. Our world's uncertain. Come on, right? Give ourselves a little bit more self-compassion than that to try to, you know, yeah. So
I mean, if we knew our outcome, like from the beginning, that's one thing. But will that ever be? I mean, in my case, I mean, who knew I was going to be, you know, doing the PhD, for example?
Yeah.
That was not observed until just months ago.
No.
So it's about, you know, taking it as it is, letting it be, expecting the unexpected, maybe at times.
But not expecting it for too long, because then it's
I'm not expecting
overwhelming,
it for too long. Exactly.
right? It's just, I don't know, this thing we call life, I tell you.
Mhm.
So, Christine, what from the week would you say that you appreciate the most that you've discovered?
The whole disconnecting while eating,
Hmm.
because yeah, it's totally true. Like if I'm trying to multitask or work while eating, then I'll be grazing all day long. Like it's not good. Um, but yeah, but also being very present, because when
Mm,
you're present, then you're more mindful.
it's true. Anything else?
The 3 hour window.
Fair
And then
window.
there's like the other stuff, like I bought blueberries today.
Mhm.
I should have bought them last week when we were talking about blueberries, but I've got blueberries this week. I bought them today.
I
So,
love
and I've
blueberries.
been having my vitamin C pills again. Like I
Nice.
have my vitamin C chewables. I
Mhm.
wasn't taking them, and now I'm just like, I should start taking these again. See how they affect my allergies.
Awesome. And
Yeah,
what's
I did pay
something
attention. Sorry,
you
go
always
ahead.
pay attention. It's awesome.
No, but I was looking back on my notes and I'm like, oh yeah, vitamin C. No wonder I was taking them again.
What's something that you, I mean, I can probably already predict what this is going to be, but what was the most challenging part of this week for you?
Thinking.
Thinking.
The constant thinking.
Right.
But that's because I was like, am I
Mhm,
full? Am I
mhm,
hungry?
mhm.
Am I almost full? Am I at 80%?
So if you were to like consider intuitive eating, like would you say that like intuitive eating would be like, questioning whether you're full or not, or like what would you imagine like intuitive eating to be?
Trusting my gut.
Okay, cool. It's a very good assessment. And so what would you say you did last week? Would you say that you were trusting your gut?
For the most part. Yeah,
Cool.
definitely.
Mhm.
But then second guessing my gut.
Right. So then could that be contributing to that overthinking?
Yeah, I said I
Mhm.
was overthinking.
Oh, I know. But I just,
Okay. Yeah.
what I mean is, because when we relate to things as like hard or anything like this, um, what am I trying to say? Intuitive eating in the future, like just because I want to paint the picture towards what you had said, like intuitive eating is nutrition that feels like it's easy, like it's something that like feels effortless, right? So you're doing all this upfront work, right? And for that effortlessness to arrive, we're going to have some of those times where we've got to feel a little bit tired, feel a little bit overworked mentally. But to remember that that's not what the end goal will be.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got the quote here now that I want to read you. It's just loading. So where are your quotes? Here we go. There we go. And I wrote this down the first day that I spoke with you, Christine, and I knew that it would come in handy someday. I didn't know where or when and how, but anyways, in all areas of life, I don't like leaving things unanswered.
Ah.
I wrote that down and I'm like, man, that's going to come up somewhere. That's going to be useful. And here we are.
Dun 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 dun.
Yeah, so
No.
on that mic drop, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, but
Mhm.
it's just something to like look at from the perspective of everything we talked about, like whether we call it independence, whatever we want to call it, right? But this notion of feeling uneasy about things being left unanswered, it's the same thing that I'm talking about here. Our brain perceives it as overthinking and mentally draining because we are not okay with leaving things unanswered.
Or
Mm,
really trying to embrace all the concepts that are being thrown my way.
sure. That is another way to say that. 100%. But being okay when, like, just letting them be, right? Because the question is, like, do we need to have all of these concepts be, you know,
Well, that's what the focus of the week is. And if I
yeah,
don't embrace it and really try, then how do I know? Going
well,
back to Mind Week. That was a whole
mhm,
like, if I don't try it, then I don't know.
that's
So I
right,
have to embrace it
right.
because that's the goal of the week.
And so that is super true.
So I can let
And
go of it today
yes,
and
sure,
focus on something else.
sure. So I just want you to consider that they can happen in tandem,
Mhm.
right?
Oh
You know,
yeah.
like you can try extraordinarily hard and be intentional, which are two extremely important concepts. And then the third concept to add into there is that, you know, you don't need to be thinking about it all the time either. And this is the thing when speaking in concept, is that it's purely a communication mechanism to try to relate to your life, and the way in which I interpret it and the way I express it are going to be possibly heard, possibly, you know, but you get it, right? And so the only thing that I want you to consider, not related to the other concepts, is this notion of being able to be okay with things being unanswered.
Yeah, totally.
Because that does not happen in a 1 or a 0. I just mean, like, what would it be like if you could turn down the dial of that uncertainty fatigue, or that decision fatigue, or that perception of stress or anxiety that comes about from having something unanswered? Like, you could literally just turn the dial down when you wanted to, or else when life is presenting you with unanswered questions, life is lifing you. You're not living life, right? So all it is just an awareness mechanism to be able to have control in yourself at all times, but being okay when you don't feel like you don't have control as well. Anyways, I hope that some of that was that made sense. So
Yes.
good. All right, so we're gonna have to leave it there. And anything else from the two of you before we get going?
No, I think it's a good way to even reflect on our own cues, as I talk about it for myself.
That's inspiring, because, like, honestly, everybody needs to check themselves, really.
Check it.
You will never arrive at, like, the perfect holy grail scenario ever, you know? And so we sometimes need to just pause ourselves and just ask ourselves that question, you know? But Romy, thank you so much for everything that you have to offer from this conversation and from the week. And Christine, good job again with your discovering. And yeah, the big trend is uncertainty. And the reality is that, like, you might have experienced it like fatigue from thinking about it so much. And much like I said in the Mind Week, how much I appreciate you just, like, being so willing to give everything a try, right? To give it your best shot. Now what I want to leave you with is asking yourself the question of, like, what it would mean for you to like disconnect yourself from not knowing, and just sit in that question. Okay.
Yeah. I learned my lesson in week 2 on that one.
Do you want to tell Romy?
Oh, because I'm a planner, like, budgeting, accounting, anyways. But yeah, because in week 1, I had clear set goals for nutrition. This is what I do. These are my macros. This is what I follow, like homework every day. Then the body week came and I was like, all right, what do I have to know for this week? Because in nutrition, I had it all set up from the beginning. This is what I have to do all week. Anyways, I was being a smart ass and asked for what that was for the whole week. Like, what do I have to look forward to for the whole week? Because he was just giving it to me like day by day. So he gave me the list and I'm like, wow, it's a good thing you're giving this to me day by day because I'm good now. I don't need to know.
And then once you got to my week, you're like, where's everything?
I know,
exactly.
that's the thing. I told him that.
Yep.
I was like, I missed the articles or I missed the whatever. And then even when you told me, you're like, oh, you're too busy, I'm not going to give you anything. I was like, okay.
And when you think about it.
But then at the end of this week, I'm like, my brain hurts. I was thinking too much. Maybe it's a good thing I didn't get anything.
Yeah. So it's good to have that contrast. It's really good to have that contrast because now you can be in the experience of like when I don't have a clear like outcome that I'm trying to drive, that sitting in that uncertainty is overwhelming. Or
yeah, just don't tell me anything. I'll just take every day as a day off till I get something.
Yeah,
I'm done. I'm tired.
I'm done. I'm tired.
But also, you know what? That actually made me think, like, in any journey, when you're trying to develop habits, routines, and everything, and I think Susanna also went through this, where she had peaks of all in, high interest, and then just kind of faded out. Like, and this is with any habit, unless you do it for 3 weeks, it doesn't become a habit. So I'm starting to feel that sort of like that all in fatigue is starting to kick in, where it's like, all right, how many more days do I have left here? Like, come on.
Yeah, there you go.
Right? So now I'm just kind of like, just give it to me when you feel you need to. I don't need to know. I'm good. I'll take it. I'll take it day by day. I'll stop asking.
So that is, and the one I want you to also consider is the one about asking questions, like what it means when you ask questions. So you're hitting, this is totally normal in anyone's journey. You're never going to be like 100% like perfect at anything you do. But again, it's embracing that imperfection, right? Because it's inside of that imperfection that you get to learn something else that will move you forward. I like to think, it was said beautifully by Sasha, who's one of the co-founders of Fuel Life. She says that success is just like leaping from failure to failure. So allowing ourselves to be in a state of failure, however that is defined by us, because we're the ones that get to define what that looks like, that is what brings us forward. So the state of knowing sometimes can be used as a way to escape failure. So when you have the courage to let go of knowing and embrace whatever happens, is a huge breakthrough from where we started, because you needed to know. So even though you just said that you feel like you're hitting like the plateau of going all in, I hope that you can see in what I just said right there, and through the reflection from where we've come from, that we can also actually celebrate that as a big win, actually. Because life is not going to be like Christine all in all the time, right? Because you won't be able to take care of yourself otherwise.
That's why I went to bed instead of staying up really late to get that self-discovery journal in. And I even said it the next day. I was like, I have to get it done, but not tonight. Like, I'll just do it in the morning. I'll do 2 posts, one for yesterday and one for later in the day, because I was tired and I went to sleep.
So that's it. Like, allowing that flexibility is key. That's the keys to the kingdom, honestly.
Mhm.
Pivoting, self-compassion, imperfection, embracing all of these like little gifts. That's what will move you forward. And it's so hard to teach. How do you give an outcome of that? It's like, sit in the question for like 30 minutes and write down, at least 500 words about this topic, No. It kind of has to be self-directed because you're the one that comes to it.
Mhm. Well, yeah, I let it come to me,
Great. We're also
especially my
really feeling-
journals.
Yeah. So I want you to, this is the last thing, I swear, but what you just said, where you let it come to you in the journals, have you noticed that that it becomes easier? Like when you can just like let things come to you?
Yeah, no, like when, like, seriously, because there wasn't like a lot of like content all this week. Like for my week or my days that I planned for nutrition, like I actually had some blank days because I didn't know what to write. And it was later on in the later days in the week, then I was like, okay, like it was really starting to come to me, the aha moments and the discoveries and all that. So yeah, no, it took time.
So that's what I mean. So that situation of going from like trying to figure it out to embracing uncertainty, that is the same discovery that you are looking to find in other areas. And I'm just naming it. So if you were to name from Monday and how difficult, or however, whatever words you want to use to describe, to Saturday, right? That progression of ease in doing your journals, figure out what that looks like in your other areas of life, and your brain will thank you.
Oh yeah, no, totally. Oh my God. There's been days where I've had to let it go.
Yes.
And just like come back to it another time, or else I drive myself mental. I can't.
Yes. Good. So like just be in the discovery of that, because that is what, if you can bring that into nutrition, like, and into every area of your health, it will just make your life so much easier. And that on different levels, you will discover over time. And that will take weeks, months, years,
Oh yeah. True that.
So awesome. Well, let's leave it there, guys and gals. And we will be where, I guess we're starting body this week. So choo choo.
I don't know
what the choo choo was, but I like it.
And another messed up routine starting this week.
Yay, messed up routine.
I know.
Embracing it.
Embracing
I am.
it. Exactly.
I'm having to embrace it. Yes.
Amazing. Okay, well, thank you so much, Romy, again. And
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. And you guys have a good sleep. And
Thank you.
Christine, you'll get a little nugget of knowledge starting at 8:30 tomorrow morning, okay?
Don't tell me that. Now I have to think about it. Okay.
Just kidding. It's happening it might happen earlier. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just bugging you. Okay.
I know.
Good night.
Okay, bye.
Bye now.